I first, though, want to say thank you to my mother for choosing to support me by being here tonight. Yes. It's great to talk about sex with your mother in the front row. I'm just gonna... So, I want to tell you about the time, the one and only time that I ever entered into a sexual pact. Does everyone know, applause if you know what a sex act is. A sex pact, I'm sorry. I know, you know a sex act, right? Okay, sex pact, applause, if you know what it is. Thank you to my mother for not applauding. Okay, all it is basically is that you have some terms, some conditions around something involving sex, so an agreement of some kind. And the way this happened for me started innocently enough. I was in college, it was my sophomore year, and there was a guy who was a freshman. And you know how when you're a sophomore, you know your attitude towards freshmen, right? So for the purpose of the story, I'm just gonna call him Freshman Pup, because that's what he was. And he was in... Don't mock me, I was in Air Force ROTC. Yes, I had to wear those ugly shoes, Corfam. You seen those? Yeah, well, they could be. They weren't on me. So I was a sophomore, and I was actually in charge of a group of freshmen, and he was one of them. And at some point, he came over because he needed help with his drilling, and I don't mean that in a sexual way. And so I helped him, and somehow... he just did this move. It was very smart for a freshman, especially, where he blended into the wall. He just kind of backed up. When some girlfriends of mine came over, he just took a step back into the shadows. I forgot he was still there. I thought he'd gone home. And we started girl talking, you know. So he heard Kathy talking about how frustrated she was because she actually waited for 3 weeks before having sex with a guy, only to find that he was incredibly small. The way she put it was like, "Are you sure it's in? Are you sure?" Sorry to both my mom and the minister next to her. And then, you know, he also listened, unbeknownst to us all, to Pam, who was an actual nymphomaniac. That was my actual roommate. And she was sitting there very cocky, explaining how her boyfriend would make her come 3 times before he even thought about coming himself. Which, does somebody else have that arrangement? That was so new to me. That just blew me away. I was like, what? So she was bragging, and me, just so you know, this is the only good part of the story for my mom. I was not talking about sex. I was not having sex. I was dating. I was complaining about this guy who'd taken me on a date to a movie that it turned out had no dialogue. I thought, does the man know me at all? No dialogue? So that was it. He was over with. So I was talking about that. And when it came time when we all eventually went, and Freshman Pup eventually came out of the shadows, it's like, oh, he scared me. What are you doing? And this became a pattern for him, though. He would come over, slip into the shadows, and listen to our girl talk. And after several nights of this, he came up to me, cornered me alone, and he said, I'm a virgin, and I don't want to be anymore. Said, I understand. But why are you telling me this? Because I've decided that you're the one I want to teach me. I want you to be my first. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work that way. You don't just pick somebody out to be a mentor. It's not a class. And I can't help thinking I'm a very bad choice. Which is odd, because he heard all these women talking about sex, and he picked the one that wasn't talking about sex, because I really didn't know what I was doing. But if any of you have seen or read Winnie the Pooh, you know how Owl is with reading? You know, like they come to him because he's wise and he's an owl, and they're like, can you read this for us? And he always does this double check. He's like, so you can't read at all? And they go, no. And he's like, great, no problem, I got this. And he'll make up words. Well, that would have been my situation. But so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have to teach anybody. That's a lot of responsibility. So I said no. But he kept after me and after me and after me. Please, it'll just be one night. Here's where the sex pack comes in. Just one night, that's it, and I won't bother you ever again. And eventually he wore me down because he was like a puppy, just after me on my heels all the time. So I finally thought, fine, shut up. But, you know, in ROTC, you're not supposed to date people of different years in your little squadron. That's forbidden. But we made it clear what the deal was. I laid it out, I laid the night out. I actually put time limits on it. And when it came down to it, like I said, I was the owl, right? So I didn't know the names for stuff. But I did instruct him pretty well. But I would say things like, okay, you have to work the shebanger again. Yes, with your toadstool. Mm-hmm. And if you can't manage to hit the shebanger with your toadstool, then you need to use some other body part because it's got to happen. So by the end of actually it was 14 hours in bed, which is probably why I didn't do so well that year in school. He was pretty good. But again, the relationship can never be even, right? Because it's all imbalance. I'm his first, he's not. He was my third. That's a huge difference, third. And, but you know, the very next day, what do I get? But roses with a love note and a poem in my, no, you're not on his side. That was not part of the sex pact, which is what I told him. And he said, you don't have it in writing, do you? I was so tricked. I didn't have it in writing, but I'm like, look, we had a verbal agreement. This was before People's Court, so I didn't know. And he said, well, I changed my mind. Like, what is the point of having a sex pact if one of the people involved in the pact can just change their mind? Then there's no pact. So anyway, it was horrible. He actually serenaded me at one point with, I can't fight this feeling anymore. I yelled down, you're not supposed to have feelings. It was a sex pact. I called the police as well, which I know sounds mean, but you gotta nip this in the bud. And eventually I did. Eventually he got the idea. And of course, he never spoke to me again, which was awkward when you're in the same squadron, which is probably why they set up that rule. But I just want to assure you that was my first and last sex pact.